Are you curious about hosting midterm rentals, but you don't know where to start? Don't worry, we've got you covered. In today's video, we're gonna break it all down.
From pricing to leasing and literally everything in between, we'll tell you what you need to know, what most people don't know, and if you stick around to the end, we'll tell you our favorite place to find midterm rental tenants.
Hi, I'm Sarah Karakayan.
And I'm Annette Grant. And together we are
Thanks for visiting.
We've been hosting for well over a decade, welcomed tens of thousands of guests, and earned thousands of 5-star reviews.
Our portfolio continues to bring in over $1.5 million year over year, and supported not only by the industry's leading brands, but also some of the biggest media outlets.
And we're here to help you with your furnished rental. What is a midterm rental? A midterm rental is a stay that crosses over the short-term rental threshold. So in many states, again, you're going to want to check your location, but 28 days plus is a midterm rental stay, but doesn't reach the threshold of a traditional long-term tenant.
And we can throw in the additional element of they are 99.9% of the time furnished versus a long-term lease where usually you have to bring your own stuff.
Absolutely. Why even consider midterm rental hosting? Well, because most of us included, have slow seasons. For example, January, February, March for us are slow, okay? So we like to fill our calendar with those midterm rentals. You might be in a different market where June, July, and August are slow. So we like to mix it up and see if we can get somebody in there for a longer period of time and increase our rent rates.
Another reason you might want to consider midterm rentals is a lot of you share with us that your market doesn't allow short-term rentals, or maybe you're nervous about incoming regulations. With most of the time, regulations are actually in favor of short-term rental hosts. It helped the good hosts rise to the top. But if it really is like limited permits or anything like that, and you could switch to a midterm rental strategy and the numbers work, you will make more money as a midterm rental versus long-term rental if you run the numbers right and everything checks out. This could be a great way for you to be more of a hospitable business than maybe a long-term lease option and keep you in that furnished rental game.
Yeah, and we know there are several homeowners associations where you have to do 30 days plus, and maybe it's a property that you enjoy during the busy season and then want to have someone in there during the slower season. And again, it has to be that 30-day plus.
We've also found a great way to encourage midterm rentals or lean on midterm rentals, properties that are in maybe locations that a short-term rental guest who doesn't really know the area, they're just there for a weekend or a few days, might not appreciate the property's location. Whereas if the property is located near a university or a hospital,
a manufacturing plant, something corporate, where the proximity to the work is the utmost importance to them.
And they understand that they're going to have a diverse, eclectic collection of properties, human beings, businesses, and they're actually okay with it because they understand where they're staying.
Yeah, you don't have to just load your Airbnb description. You can have a conversation with them. You could actually let them tour the property ahead of time, so we're all in agreement that that's where they want to stay. Let's dig into the 5 tips for midterm rentals.
As always.
But again, this is crucial because just because you're letting someone stay a longer period of time doesn't mean you're going to discount it. All right, you need to know in your marketplace what value are you providing, what are you on par with other furnished rentals in your area. And I'm telling you, a short-term rental is so different from a long-term rental, and therefore midterm rental is very different than both of those.
That's exactly right. So what does that mean by the value you provide? Here's the thing. If you have a short-term rental and the minimum stay you have is 2 nights, and maybe you do give a discount for if they stay 7 days or 10 days or 14 days, that's a completely different strategy than focusing on a midterm rental strategy of 28 days or more. You don't want to give a discount because they're staying longer because it's a totally different customer. Let's just call them a customer right here. Yes, because they're not really a guest anymore, because in a lot of states, they become tenants. And there's a whole other slew of laws that you have to take into consideration there too. And because of that, a tenant usually has a vacant property that they have to commit to at least a year. So since you're offering furniture, and oftentimes we know a lot of midterm rental hosts who offer all the silverware, maybe even get you started on soaps, things of that nature, a desk, a place to work, and You have, stay with me here, short stay flexibility. So yes, they have to stay at least 28 days, but they don't have to sign an entire year lease.
That is super, super valuable because that flexibility to most people is priceless.
Flexibility is convenience. Convenience is a premium, and therefore you need to charge differently than you would a short-term rental or a long-term rental.
A lot of times your Wi-Fi, your utilities, maybe you have security, that's all included because you're not going to break it out for someone that's staying for 120 days, have someone new sign up. So again, think about all the time that you're saving this new tenant also. They don't have to get any of that set up, and we all know how expensive it is to move.
They can just bring their bags and literally move in that night into all the drawers that you provide and go to work the next day. So how do you figure out pricing? Well, you're not going to charge the same amount per month that you would charge if it was vacant and a year commitment, okay? So that per month charge is going to be different, but it's a good place to start. So what I would do in your market is find out what short-term rental hosts are charging, find out what long-term rental landlords are charging, and find out where you belong. It's probably somewhere, within those numbers. So for example, in our marketplace, I'll just give them examples. I have a property that's located in downtown Columbus, just a few blocks from some short-term rentals of ours. The short-term rental that I have is 2-bed, 1-bath, and on average, we bring in about $3,500 a month as a short-term rental. Maybe we can get up to $4,000 a month for the short-term rental. So this property that's a midterm rental only, if it were, and that property that I was just talking about, if it were to be a long-term rental, it'd probably be around $1,800 a month. So long-term rental, $1,800 a month. Short-term rental, we can get anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000 a month. To price it as a midterm rental per month, we can get it booked anywhere between $2,800 and $3,200 depending on the months that they book. So see how it kind of fits in the middle there a little bit?
And if you're questioning where your property fits, go on Furnished Finder, go on Craigslist, go on Zillow, and look at other furnished renters in your area because you also do need to stay competitive.
There are a lot of times buildings that are strictly furnished midterm rentals.
And you can search, there's a little pro tip here, search corporate rentals in your area. That's a term that a lot of people use, either furnished rentals or corporate rentals, and you can see your competition. We love looking at the corporate rentals because those normally do have a higher price tag attached to them.
So here is how midterm rentals are the same as long-term rentals. You must have a lease in place. I don't care if you get this midterm renter from Airbnb, from Vrbo, from Zillow, Craigslist, your best friend's neighbor, okay? If they're in there, this is most states, so ask your attorney if you have any doubts. But if it's 28 days or more, tenant laws come into place, and you want to make sure that both you and your tenant are protected adequately. And putting an agreement together in black and white really bodes for a strong relationship, and you want it to be a strong relationship. So if you have a lease agreement that outlines everything, so when rent is due, when's the start of their lease, the end of their lease, what the eviction process is, and make sure you stick to that eviction process. What are your pet policies? You might even have other additional clauses in there about energy usage. So maybe you say like the thermostat needs to be from this to this, or after you spend this much in energy on the heating, that charge then goes on to you. Like literally anything you can think of. What happens if there is damage? What happens if your furniture is compromised? What else can you think of that could be in this lease agreement? You can take a basic state lease agreement. You can find these online pretty much everywhere and add to it to accommodate the fact that you are furnished and you're adding more services to your stay than a lot of landlords with long-term leases would have.
And here's the deal. That might have just sounded like a lot and you're like, oh, I don't want to lose this potential tenant. That is okay. If someone really wants to stay in your property, having them sign a lease is not going to be a question for them. It's going to be just like, please send it over, I'll DocuSign back. So this is something we do not have any problems with when we present it, and you want to let them know from the very beginning.
In addition to your lease agreement, it's also a requirement on our end that they go through a background check and a credit check, and the fact that we prove why they're in town. Most of these midterm renters are there for work, but we want to make sure that they're there for work, right? And there's no other funny business going on. And just like you would do for any other tenant situation, we want to make sure that their background is in line with the kind of tenants that we work with, and that their credit check is in line. That way you can never be called out for any discriminatory efforts. Plus, it just helps you understand who's renting your property.
And you need to do the same exact format and process for each and every applicant.
So, again,
Very similar to a long-term tenant here.
We don't do this with short terms. Honestly, with short terms, when your cleaner prepares the property and your inspector inspects the property, that's your inspection process. And
Move in and move out from the last guest.
With midterm renters, you want to get the midterm renter involved.
Yeah, you want to make them feel, and not just make them feel powerful, but they are empowered. Like, hey, you are getting exactly what the lease is saying. Let them do a full inspection. See if there's is there a crack in the sink, maybe something in the window, anything that they notice. So on the up and up, you give them that opportunity to mark it down.
So you'll have a move-in report that you will go through as the owner, and you will mark whether it's in good, fair, new condition, and then like Annette said, if there's a crack or any sort of anything that would that compromises it being new, I would take note of. And then that way, when they move out, you have them go through it, you'll go through it, and what is the difference between move in and move out, other than basic wear and tear? That is the cost of doing business. But if there's any major issues, major deep clean issues, like for example, and I've learned this the hard way, when it comes to like cleans, it's like, yes, a lot of them will pay a cleaning fee, like a departure cleaning fee. But if there is extreme mold issues or things that require a much deeper clean, more chemicals, more time, make that note too, that would be on them to rectify.
We're going to require mid-stay cleans, and that's hopefully going to combat a lot of the issues that Sarah was just chatting about. And we actually love this opportunity to get in and give a great service to the tenant and do a great service to our property.
Right. It's a great way to keep eyes on your property mid-stay, but you can also market it to your renter, to your midterm renter, as a convenience, as a way to give them a little like, hey, let us help you keep the property clean a little bit. You're here for work. It's just really a win-win. You want to make sure that you explain to them that they still need to care for the property in between these mid-stay cleans. But it's just a great way to make sure that when they move out, there's not going to be this giant overhaul that you'll need to take care of before you can get a new resident in there.
Yeah, and just really emphasize the value, the convenience, the comfort. It's like an upsell, it's like you're providing it, but it is part of it. And it's like they will love it because it's like you don't want to go out and buy all of the cleaning supplies, we'll pop in. It's our professional cleaning team that knows the property very well. So therefore they don't have to interview anybody. They don't have to go out and find the cleaner. So makes it super easy. And that is a part added into the overall midterm stay too. So you're not trying to tell them that they need to pay the cleaner, directly or anything like that.
And this for us, there are midterm renter hosts out there who make this optional. For us, it's required in our business. And for us, it's every 2 weeks. So there are times where I might negotiate with the renter and make it every month, but I found every 2 weeks is a really nice way to keep it easy on the cleaner too. Go give the bathroom a scrub, give the kitchen a decent scrub, and then everything else gets a light dust and a light vacuum.
I know, Sarah, people are going to have questions.
Yeah.
On the contract, do we say the price is included in the overall? Is it extra? How do they add that to their monthly rent? Explain how we'll do the pricing for people paying attention here.
Yeah, so rent is one part of the lease. The security deposit is another part of the lease. The departure clean is another part of the lease. And the midterm cleans are another part of the lease. So that everything is kind of line items. So just for clarity, because when it comes to rent, I don't want to overinflate what our rent is compared to my competitors.
Absolutely. That's the key, what Sarah just said. So because they're going to shop you. They're going to be out there trying to find the best day. And so if you break that down line item, and then when you have that cleaning line item like that, they're like, oh, that's actually, again, convenience that it's already there. I already know the price. Get it done. Perfect. Love that. Learn from our mistake. You cannot do a back-to-back when there has been someone in your property for 120 days. Even when you've done the mid-stay cleans, your property is just going to need some love, okay? It's going to need that deep clean that it deserves, even though you've been doing those midterm stays.
Because there's things that you're going to want to do. For example, I'm just thinking about our midterm rental. We've got, those split units. It's those heating and cooling units that are
mini split
heaters and coolers. So we like to get those a deep clean. That we don't always get to that during the mid-stay cleans. There might be some baking pans sheets that need to be refreshed and replaced. And you just don't want to be running around between that guest departing. And I like to give my midterm rental guests a little bit more time to depart, or maybe when they're arriving. It's just a nicer way to be more flexible on all fronts.
Yeah, and to your team.
Yeah.
That way your team isn't trying to scurry and get, after 120 days of someone being in there, trying to do it in 4 hours before the next guest checks in. So do yourself a favor, do your midterm rental guest a favor, and do your team a favor. Just pause for the cause, do that deep clean. So you've stayed to the end, you're excited because this can be a great revenue stream for you, but where the heck do you find these midterm renters?
So you may have heard of a website called Furnished Finder.
Very different from Airbnb though. So when you
Very
go sign up
different.
for it, there's a different flow here. Just be prepared.
You as the property owner, you pay a flat rate for the whole year on Furnished Finder, and then after that, it is up to you. They just connect you with potential tenants, and then you take it from there. Unlike Airbnb, where they're the merchant of record, right? All that money goes to Airbnb. Airbnb gives you the money. Airbnb has like air cover and other things like that. Furnished Finder is like you pay to be on the platform, and then they connect you with potential tenants, and you have to take it literally the whole. They have some really cool features inside Furnished Finder. They have a way to do background checks. They have a way to accept credit card payments. They have a lot of cool things that you can take advantage of if you don't have systems like that already set up. But that's different. So, and also you can find them on Airbnb.
Yep. Absolutely.
You can set your listing to be only available for 28 days or more, or 30 days or more, whatever you need that to be. And there are plenty of midterm renter hosts who find their tenants on Airbnb.
Again,
Zillow.
You could do furnished rentals on Zillow. And Zillow also makes it very easy to apply. The cool thing there, that application can, once they apply, they could apply to other places. You could still do old school. You could do Craigslist. I mean, I'm going to say it. I found a roommate on Craigslist like 20 years ago. Can you believe that? I literally did that. Met him at Panera. And then I let him move in. I don't know about that one.
And it was a gentleman?
He was awesome.
Oh.
Doug.
Doug.
You were good, Doug. Met you at
All right.
Panera? Craigslist? I don't, woo!
Did you do a background check? Probably not.
No, but his parents were principals at this private school. I did my own Google background check. Does that count? It doesn't. I've done some wild stuff. I've done some wild stuff. Okay?
Listen to us do your background and credit checks on your tenants. But this is a whole other video, but I know some of you are like, well, what about like insurance claims in case you're like listening to other midterm renter YouTubers or Instagrammers. Yes, you can also do insurance claims. There are websites like CRS, AL Housing, ALE. There's
Get
other ones.
creative, your friends, your
Yes.
family. But you guys, what was I thinking?
I don't know.
Letting someone move in that I met on Craigslist. Now I'm like, my
To be
younger
fair-
self. But this again, it was 20 years ago. So like,
I
Craigslist
don't know.
was the spot.
There were still murderers 20 years ago, Annette Grant.
Okay,
But-
everything ended up great, but yeah.
To be fair to
I'll
you,
rethink that
I used to
one.
live in New York, and we found our renters like on like Facebook groups.
Oh, one other spot that we do know hosts have had luck with is Facebook Marketplace for
That's
furnished
true, too.
rental.
Yeah.
So take action. Let's go. Let us know in the comments where you found your midterm rental tenants. If maybe midterm rentals is all you do, we'd be interested below. Where do you live?
Okay, so let's recap. And again, this is an intro to midterm rentals. All right. So now that you've got some what's working for us, what's not working for us, you can do more research. But we've talked about knowing your numbers and pricing accordingly. All right. There are probably other furnished rentals in your market, so see what they're doing. Always use a lease agreement and a background and credit check, and make sure that you can prove their income. That's really important. Conduct inspections at arrival and move out. Plus, it'll just make you look like you have your stuff together as a landlord when you have all these documents and you're like documenting your place and show them that you care, because you want them to care too. Require mid-stay cleans for maintenance checks, eyes on the property, and just to keep it clean. And last but not least, know where to find them. Furnished Finder, Airbnb, Zillow, Craigslist, Facebook group.
Throw a curveball here, Sarah, to help everybody out.
Yeah.
What is your number one hardest lesson learned about midterm rentals since you've been doing it for so long now? Just give them a little help here.
Here's a TFE pro tip. There are a lot of people out there talking about how easy midterm renters are.
Okay.
How like if short-term rentals are so stressful, but you know what the easy button is midterm rentals, and it's wrong. They are lying to you, okay? Here's the thing. Midterm renters are great. And it's great for certain properties. It makes certain numbers on our rentals work. But here's what I know, leasing up to find the perfect renter
A lot of conversation.
is a lot.
Back
There's a
and
lot
forth.
of tire kickers on Furnished Finder and all of them, tire kickers, because they're going to live there for a while. So they're talking a whole bunch of different hosts.
Actually, I think what you're doing, can I tell them a lesson learned? Do not block your calendar until you have a lease signed, right?
Oh, until you
People
have it.
will say, I'm getting you the info, I'm coming your way, and you block your calendar, and then crickets.
I would say
right?
on average, right? There's 12 months in a year. So let's say an average midterm rental stay, I have a few years on my belt now, is like 3 months. So that's 4 times a year at least that you are leasing up the place. Even if it's 3 times a year, it's still 3 times a year where if you're not on top of it, like your property could be sitting vacant for a little while, there's tire kickers, you got to go through background checks. I mean, it's work.
I got one more for you too.
It's work.
It will happen if they say, hey, I'm here for work, this is my contract. Contracts end early and they want to move. Like the company's like, there's a new spot, a new project, you got to go. So that's something that, be ready, even if you have somebody, let's say 120, 6 months, their lives could change really quickly and they're going to want to negotiate.
And that can be your lease agreement. You can figure that out. But sometimes, and I would say this is more often than that scenario, is they want to stay. And so, listen, there's a lot of midterm renters and rentals in marketplaces, so they could move location. But how nice it is to keep someone in there, but that means you can't really plan for a new midterm renter to come in. Why can't I say midterm renter?
I don't know. One more tip, because now it's just flowing, is we learned the hard way too, like midterm renters like need more storage for their clothing, more hangers, like they really do want the dressers, they really do need the closet space. So just some of that stuff to think, going from short term to midterm, you might have to make some investments too. But here's the deal, check out our video on a short-term rental deal, because not all houses are short-term, not all of them are midterm, but both of them could be right for you, but check out that video.
So the video will go over how to analyze a short-term rental deal. If those numbers don't work out, then consider a midterm rental being an option for you, and you might be able to save a deal, and maybe you can't. Also know when to walk away. But with that, I am Sarah Karakayan.
I'm Annette Grant, and together we are
Thanks for visiting.